Shout out to Ring RQ, Julius, you legend. We're going to do a joint interview, yeah? Yeah, we'll do a joint interview, Julius. Thanks for the support. You're a legend. From your girls, Raven and Ellie.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this. Set to return to action on the undercard of Leigh Wood versus Mauricio Lara. Rhiannon Dixon. Right Hook Rhiannon, as I like to call her. She's going to be returning to action against an opponent that has yet to be announced. Could be a step up in competition for Rhiannon Dixon, who's coming off a career best win and a career best showing over amateur standout Mahjouba Abduptil.
If you pay attention to this card, so far the scheduled fights, none of them are easy fights. None of them are lighter touches.
This is the no easy fights card, as I like to call it, and it's possible that Rhiannon Dixon could once again be stepping up in class, stepping up in competition the same way she did in a previous bout earlier this year in May against Mahjouba Abduptil.
Rhiannon Dixon fought 2 times last year.
And with this fight set to go down next month, she will have fought 2 times this year. She really is a phenomenal little fighter, a phenomenal young talent, unbeaten, a southpaw.
A southpaw with power, a southpaw with hand speed.
Rhiannon Dixon, in spite of not coming from deep amateur background, she's not an Olympian or anything like that. She shows a very high ceiling and she has a lot of tools.
Speed, power.
Combinations. She's sharp and she can move. She has some athleticism and some in and out game. Campaigning in the lightweight division. Lightweight, that's 135 pounds. That's where Katie Taylor currently reigns as that division's undisputed champion. I don't get the sense that it's Rhiannon Dixon's goal or her team's to corner Katie Taylor for a fight. I wouldn't be at all surprised if those two fighters go the rest of their entire careers having never crossed paths, as they are in.
They're in very different places career-wise. Rhiannon Dixon is in the beginning stages of her career.
Whereas Katie Taylor, God bless her, she could very well be approaching the end of hers. I mean, she's certainly not in the beginning stages like Rhiannon is.
Rhiannon sports professional record of 5 wins, no losses, and no draws, no recorded knockouts.
None yet, but don't let that fool you. She can punch, she has power, and as she develops as a fighter and learns to further sit on her punches and put some mustard on them, I've no doubt she'll start racking up knockouts. If you saw that Mahjouba Abduptil fight, you will have seen Rhiannon drop her.
She dropped Abduptil 2 or 3 times, as I recall.
Rhiannon Dixon has the good fortune of campaigning at a weight where there's a lot of variety. Former champions, veteran fighters, and some up-and-comers. The lightweight division, like many divisions south of middleweight, is a densely populated division, a densely populated weight class, and thanks to the exploits of Katie Taylor, there are still some familiar faces out there for Rhiannon Dixon to occupy her time with and further develop as a fighter. I wouldn't mind seeing Rhiannon take on Miriam Gutierrez or Jennifer Hahn. 2 common opponents with Katie Taylor. She could shoot for a fresh face, maybe an Elvina White, maybe Poland's own Alexandra Sidorenko.
There's an unbeaten up-and-comer here in the US of A called Chelsea May. She's somebody you want to watch out for.
There's plenty to go around, plenty of options, and Rhiannon Dixon, being 27 years old, she's got plenty of time to develop and do so gradually.
Because there is more work needs doing. She's talented, but she still needs more developmental fights.
In her corner, she's got $1 Million Crawler, Anthony Crawler, former world title challenger, fighting out of the same gym as reigning WBO junior middleweight champion Natasha Jonas. She's in very good company over there, and she looks the part.
Because the running theme for this entire card seems to be no easy fights for anyone.
I mean, think about it. Terry Harper's moving all the way up there to junior middleweight to take on Hannah Rankin. Leigh Wood is taking on the hard-punching Mauricio Lara, who we all know trounced Josh Warrington in their initial meeting. In their first fight, Maxie Hughes is taking on former IBF featherweight champion Kid Galahad. Nobody seems to be taking on lighter touches on this card. Nobody's got it easy. So is it safe to assume that Rhiannon Dixon could end up in a...
She about to fight in a 50-50 fight.
That seems to be the running theme for this card. In any event, she is set to return to action late next month on the undercard of Wood versus Lara, and I look forward to her next outing. In men's heavyweight news, Eddie weight news. Eddie Hearn was quoted as saying, "I had an offer for Deontay Wilder recently, Middle East. I reached out to his team and said, this is a huge offer. I never even heard back. It was a potential fight. Could be with Dillian Whyte. That's the fight we want to make for early 2023.
Currently, Dillian Whyte's name's attached to a a potential Daniel Dubois fight set to go down this fall, though it's not official.
Dillian White himself very recently took to social media to dispel rumors that he would return in October. He said he'll be back in November, perhaps November.
Eddie wants to match him against Deontay Wilder. I think he's barking up the wrong tree.
But I think Eddie's doing. Eddie Hearn, who declared he wants Anthony Joshua to have 4 fights between now and the end of 2023, beginning with a comeback fight versus a top 15 opponent in either December or January.
We've talked about that. We've talked about how I think it would be ideal for Anthony Joshua to take on Otto Wallin.
Or Zhilei Zhang later on this year, if he comes back later on this year. Either Zhilei Zhang or Otto Wallin, in no particular order, makes a lot of sense because Zhilei Zhang, like Anthony Joshua, is coming off a loss, a competitive loss. You can do that, or you can have him fight Otto Wallin, straight away, as there is some name value associated with Otto Wallin. Lest we forget, Otto gave Tyson Fury all he could handle when they fought.
They're both southpaws.
Anthony Joshua just fought a southpaw, so he won't be in unfamiliar territory, but Zhilei Zhang and Otto Wallin are nowhere near as well schooled as an Alexander Usyk. So those 2 fights make sense to me for Anthony Joshua's ring return, though as far as his ring return, Eddie Hearn says he sees the Dillian White fight as a must-make fight, he sees the Deontay Wilder fight as a must-make fight, and he also sees him fighting Tyson Fury because it's still a monumental fight.
Things that I agree with and things that I don't.
I don't want to see a Dillian White rematch. Anthony Joshua already knocked that guy out years ago. I see no need in a second fight. And that's not saying that a second fight between them might not do well at the box office, might not do well at the gate. It very well might. But I'm more interested in seeing Dillian White take on the other guys that are out there. I like this Daniel Dubois fight that he's rumored to be having. I would rather see him in that fight than an Anthony Joshua rematch. Eddie Hearn mentioned Deontay Wilder. And as stated, I think Eddie's barking up the wrong tree. Moreover, I said it in my previous video. I'll say it here again, here and now. I think he needs to take a hardline stance when it comes to Deontay Wilder. Stop mentioning him. Stop trying to make fights with him because it's not going to happen. It didn't happen before. It's not about to happen now. You are encouraging them.
Those Saudi Arabians might be willing to pay top dollar for Wilder versus White or Wilder versus Joshua.
But Deontay Wilder, I suspect, does not have the autonomy as an athlete to accept any offers from Eddie Hearn. Thus, he is barking up the wrong tree. Oh, don't get it wrong. Deontay Wilder does put his foot in his mouth. He wants to appear an entrepreneur, a businessman, but he's nothing of the sort. He's a pawn. He gets told who to fight, when to fight, and how much he's going to make. So even if an offer to take on Dillian White, or
even if there's a big cash offer to take on Anthony Joshua in Saudi Arabia,
I don't know that he has the autonomy to accept it. And even if that offer is a bigger cash offer than anything they can hope to make for him on the PBC side of things, in all likelihood, he'll still reject it. He rejected $100 million.
He did.
Multi-fight deal for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world under the instruction of Al Heyman. And he himself admitted that the money for the Joshua fight
was in fact more than the money for the Fury fight.
Eddie Hearn very recently reached out to Deontay Wilder to give him yet another big cash offer. And in Deontay Wilder's own words, they can't talk right now. They are busy.
Deontay Wilder is one of several PBC fighters that's getting bad financial advice, and it's not in his own best interest.
Deontay Wilder's been running around telling people that he makes so much money outside of boxing that he doesn't actually need to be boxing, that he doesn't need to come back. He wants to come back. That's what he's been telling people. And he's been telling people that boxing isn't a sport. Boxing is a business. Strictly a business. So you tell me how much business sense it made for you to reject more money for those Joshua fights to take less money for those Fury fights. Those Fury fights that got you beat, that got your belt took.
Got your belt took and your ass kicked, my friend.
Much business sense did that make? Who did that make business sense for? Certainly not the fighter. Certainly not Deontay Wilder. He ended up losing back-to-back, and
according to him, he made less money than he would have made fighting Anthony Joshua, win or lose. So who did that make business sense for?
Certainly not the fighter. Certainly not Deontay Wilder. I'll tell you who it made business sense for. It made business sense for Al Heyman and his broadcast partners. You know, Deontay Wilder himself said that he is a network free agent, and that's only half true. While he doesn't have an exclusivity deal with Showtime, and he never did, and he doesn't currently have an exclusivity deal with Fox,
I don't think he's at liberty to fight off platform.
he is Al Heyman's puppet. He is Al Heyman's slave. He can only fight on PBC-affiliated networks, PBC-affiliated platforms, even if none of those platforms are offering him a big cash guarantee in the form of an exclusivity deal. Because if you're going to give a network exclusive access to you and your fights, shouldn't you be getting something out of it?
You're supposed to. Anthony Joshua did with Sky Sports.
When you're a flagship fighter, like Anthony Joshua is a flagship fighter, like Deontay Wilder is a flagship fighter, and
A network.
a network wants exclusivity, they're supposed to pay for it. Now, Sky Sports paid for it when it came to Anthony Joshua, a multi-fight deal for the value of $100 million at the end of the deal. Now, Deontay Wilder had no such deal with Showtime. He currently has no such deal with Fox.
Currently, Anthony Joshua does have a big cash exclusivity deal with DAZN.
He's not at liberty to box off platform, but he's being compensated for it. That's how it's supposed to be. Whereas Deontay Wilder, in spite of saying years ago that he's a network free agent, he's not a free agent in the free sense of the word.
Why do you think he keeps turning down offers for more money than what he's currently making? Is it that he's
Or
scared?
is it that he can't leave? Or is it a bit of both?
The truth is the truth. It's not mutually exclusive.
Not always. Somebody calls you up for a deal that involves Saudi Arabian cash, Saudi Arabian money, and your response is you're busy with Robert Hellenius?
Do you guys honestly think he's going to make with Robert Hellenius on Fox?
What he could be making with either Dillian Veit or Anthony Joshua in Saudi Arabia, where all that long money is. Don't kid yourself. I don't think Deontay Wilder has the autonomy to accept any offers from anyone. He is Al Heyman's puppet, his pawn.
Moreover, I don't think that Eddie Hearn should encourage this anymore.
Not just because Deontay might not have the autonomy to accept any of his offers, but because Deontay's not going to fight your guy. Haven't you figured that out yet? And if he's not going to fight your guy, why are you attaching your guy's name to his? You're just giving them the green light to clout chase whatever you're doing.
Don't forget that Shelley Finkel earlier this month was the one who expressed an interest in making a Wilder versus Joshua fight.
Eddie Hearn follows up on that interest by reaching out to start a dialogue, and in so many words, what they tell him is that they're busy.
What do you want to do? You want to keep playing phone tag with these people?
You wasted a lot of your own time back in 2017, 2018, and 2019 trying to get this fight over the line. Haven't you learned your lesson yet?
There's an old saying, I'm sure you've heard it. Why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free?
Why have one of your broadcast partners offer one of your fighters a exclusivity deal for a big cash guarantee when you don't have to? When you're going to tell him to stay on that platform, even if there's more money out there for him somewhere else.
More money for your fighter.
This is why Al Heyman's business practices, acting as both a manager and advisor to the fighters and a promoter in many ways, brokering deals with broadcast networks, is often dubbed dubious and unethical. As it is unethical, there is a glaring conflict of interest.
You can't have both the network and the fighter's best interests in mind. You're going to have to choose.
And in the end, what you're going to choose is whatever benefits you the most. So what benefits Al Heyman the most? The budgets he gets from these networks.
The relationship with the network gets priority over the best interests of the fighter.
You got fighters like Deontay Wilder that might get offers to fight somewhere else for more money than you can pay them, and you trick these guys into staying on your own side of things
Because it benefits you and your broadcast partner not letting that content go somewhere else.
You don't want Deontay Wilder boxing on a Matchroom show, even if he stands to make more money than you can make him on either Fox or Showtime, but you don't want that. You don't want that guy going across the street being content for somebody else.
Of course not. He's one of your flagship fighters, so you trick him.
You coerce him, convince him to stay on the PBC side of things, not with his best best interests in mind, but the network relationship you have with your broadcast partners.
Because your broadcast partners aren't going to be happy that what's supposed to be their content ends up somewhere else.
And where it becomes unethical is your broadcast partner is not actually paying for exclusivity, where they should be. If you don't want Deontay Wilder to go across the street, you've got to pay him for that. You've got to pay for that exclusivity. You normally would, whereas in this instance, they don't.
Deontay Wilder didn't have an exclusive deal with Showtime, and he currently doesn't have one with Fox, yet he fights there exclusively.
Rejecting offers from Matchroom for Saudi Arabian money, Saudi Arabian paydays.
This is the advice he's getting from his advisor, who also happens to be in bed with the network. Do you see now where it's unethical?
What does Deontay Wilder, the fighter, get for pledging fealty to these broadcast networks that aren't necessarily pledging fealty to him? They're not offering him an exclusive deal where he gets a fuck ton of money at the end of the deal.
The way it looks, it's almost like Deontay's committed to Fox, but Fox ain't committed to Deontay, because if they were, they'd be giving him a big cash guarantee and an exclusivity deal.
I mean, look, he's not going anywhere. In a nutshell, that's what it is. That's what's going on. And that's why I think Eddie Hearn is wasting his time, and he shouldn't waste any more of it trying to get Deontay Wilder in the ring with one of his fighters on DAZN. It's not going to happen. What might happen, however,
if Anthony Joshua can get himself back in the winner's bracket,
and the powers that be can get that Usyk versus Fury fight over the line, if Tyson Fury emerges the victor in that fight, the undisputed heavyweight title fight, if he wins, I could very much see him sticking around for at least one more fight with Anthony Joshua. And all Anthony's got to do is get himself back in the winner's bracket.
This is why I think he should fight Otto Wallin. This is why I think he should fight Zhilei Zhang.
For more reasons than one, I think that Otto Wallin would be an ideal choice, because Otto gave Tyson Fury all he could handle when they fought, because Otto, like Usyk, is a southpaw, and maybe Anthony needs a little bit more experience with those southpaws, because Tyson Fury is ambidextrous. Sometimes he boxes as a southpaw.
And you might end up boxing him next year. You might end up boxing Tyson Fury.
He might, if Tyson Fury wins. If he loses and Usyk becomes this division's undisputed champion, I don't think he's going to stick around. I think he's going to retire, vacate the titles, at which point they may be redistributed, and Anthony Joshua will have a chance to become a 3-time heavyweight champion. That's if Usyk wins. But if Usyk loses, Fury might fight him.
Because Fury versus Anthony Joshua is still a very big fight.
It's still a very big fight, a very big money fight. And let's not kid ourselves. Tyson Fury isn't the Spartan that he makes himself out to be. He is very much business-minded. And in a situation where he beats Alexander Usyk and becomes this division's undisputed champion, there will be only one big money fight left out there for him: the Anthony Joshua fight. If Anthony gets himself back in the winner's bracket, those two may yet get the chance to settle up with each other.
Your focus shouldn't be getting Deontay Wilder in the ring to make that fight. Haven't you learned your lesson?
Your focus ought to be getting yourself back in the winner's bracket, rebuilding your confidence, and preparing for what could be a Tyson Fury showdown, because it's not off the table.